He described feeling quite shocked about that. Gordon Brown, he also talked about this moment as well when he went to see the late Queen and said once he'd been asked to form a government to become Prime Minister, there was what he described as a congenial and business-like chat about his plans. So I think we can expect the conversation to be about forming a government, building the cabinet policy priorities. A short chat here before Kier Starmer leaves to go to Downing Street.
Yes, you do wonder what was going through Kier Starmer's mind on that drive here to the palace, because Rishi Sunak, in his words, outside Numbers 10 in the last hour or so, I mean, there was quite a gracious reference to just how much one family's life is about to change. Yes, it's an enormous job. It's a time-consuming job, but he is a man with two children who are still at school. He guards their privacy very closely, doesn't talk about their names, you don't see photos of them. This is a huge moment for them as a family, and he's about to be formally told he is Prime Minister, and then, as you say, his wife will then come into the room for those final moments. It would be fascinating to know what on earth goes through your mind, however much you've thought about it during the campaign, in the run-up as leader of the opposition. This is a real moment, politically, constitutionally, but for them as a family as well. And the monarch's aware of that. The monarch may make reference to that.
I think it's highly likely the King will ask him about that. And there is just something, I think, about being driven through those central gates into the quadrangle of Buckingham Palace, going into the palace here to meet the King, that will really bring home just how public their life as a husband and wife, as a family, is now going to be. However hard they will clearly work to protect their children and not have them involved in the public side of their life, there is going to still be a curiosity and an interest into this family, and they must be feeling that and be very well aware of that as they head into Buckingham Palace and have their audience with the King today.
Do we know how well the King knows Kier Starmer, actually? How many times would they have formally met? What do we know on that front?
Yeah, I have asked the palace about that this week, and I don't think that any of the members of the royal family know Kier Starmer particularly well, but he has been involved in a number of set-piece occasions where he would have come into contact with the King a number of times, particularly after the death of the Queen. He had a number of meetings then with the King. He also was part of, obviously, various meetings around the coronation. He's been part of state visits. He's been part of state opening of Parliament. So there will have been contact. We also know the Prince of Wales has a yearly meeting with the leader of the opposition. So he will have had a private meeting with Kier Starmer as well, following a pattern his father had set over the years. So some contact, but it is now really that the two men, the King and the new Prime Minister, will have a chance to get to know each other very well.
Just replaying those images of Kier Starmer and his wife arriving here at Buckingham Palace in the last few moments. We have had torrential rain here for so much of the day at the palace. And look at that, just as they walk in, that's the King's door there. Just as they walk in, goodness, the sun comes out. I'm not saying anything by that. I'm just mentioning that's a group of people who've got pretty bedraggled standing here at Buckingham Palace today. And now the sun is out just as they go through the King's door. They're taken up to the first floor. That's where the audience room is, and that is where that meeting, we assume, will be going on right now. And again, this is, Daniela, something that the two men will now get used to, because it's worth just reflecting again, isn't it, on the relationship between the monarch and the Prime Minister of the day. The monarch remains politically neutral, but acts, history tells us anyway, as a sounding board. And many Prime Ministers we know have talked about really valuing and welcoming that opportunity just once a week, whether it's face-to-face or on the phone now, to chat with confidence. Some have made have said almost with a smile, it's lovely to have a conversation with someone who understands what you're going through as Prime Minister, and you know it won't be leaked.
Exactly. It is a private meeting. It isn't leaked. And of course, this is a King who has some very strong views about the world, all that vast experience he had as Prince of Wales and learning from his mother as well. So he will have a view. He will be interested in what the Prime Minister has to say. And I think he will want to be involved and understand how this new Labour government forms and what its policy priorities are.
Daniela Rell, for now, thank you so much. Our senior royal correspondent there with me at the palace. More from here a little later. For now, though, that meeting is private and there are no cameras, as you will be gathering. So for now, we will hand you back to John and Sophie. Jane and Daniela, thank you very much for now. Well, we're here in the studio. We'll stay on those pictures of Buckingham Palace, but we do expect Sir Kier Starmer to be in there for at least another 25 minutes. But we're here in Westminster with Tom Baldwin, who is Sir Kier Starmer's biographer, and also we are joined again by our deputy political editor, Vicky Young. Tom Baldwin, we saw Sir Kier Starmer go in there. We saw him with his wife, Lady Victoria. A lot of people will not know very much about, well, really either of them, but I mean, his wife has been very, very hidden during this campaign, hasn't she?
Yeah, well, I mean, she doesn't want to be a sort of prop in politics. She's got a job. She works at a local hospital. She wants to carry on working at a local hospital. She doesn't want to be, a sort of just someone on the arm of the Prime Minister all the time. If it's foreign visits, she'll do that. She'll do what she has to do, but she doesn't want to be, a kind of part of his brand, and nor are either of them going to let their kids be part of their brand. They will not use their names in public. They will not allow them to be photographed. Right? It's really important to them that these teenage kids get a chance to have a proper teenage without sort of becoming sort of public property.
Because they're 16 and 13 years old, aren't they? And it's a pretty difficult time to uproot your life and to move into somewhere which is so in the public spotlight as Downing Street.
It is difficult. It's a thing that Kier Starmer says really keeps him up at night. He has sleepless nights over this. He says at that age they should be getting up to all sorts, having a proper teenage time. And it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And he's worried about the impact on them. And I think they'll find lots of ways to mitigate that, because that is so central to their thoughts. I mean, I'm just reminded to see him going into Buckingham Palace, though, one of the previous times he went in there to get his knighthood. And it's an unlikely knighthood. He's probably the most working class Labour leader we've had for a generation. The only one to have Sir prefixed to his name before he got it. He got knighted for being head of the CPS. But when he went up for his knighthood, his dad rocked up with his mum, who's very disabled, in a battered Volvo at those gates with a Great Dane in the back. And they said, "We're here for Kier's knighthood." And eventually they let him in. And then he asked the footman, "Could you take the dog for a walk?" Because it needs exercise. And so the corgis are out, the Queen's corgis, and the footman didn't know what to do. And it's absolute chaos. And it's a sort of fantastic vignette, I think, of the kind of slightly ramshackle background he comes from. His dad was a character. I mean, proper character. His mum was lovely, very, very ill for most of all of Kier's life, in fact. But that sort of sense of just turning up, saying, "I think my son's getting knighted. Could you take a Great Dane for a walk?" And I think they all had a nice time that day.
You see the scenes there in Downing Street, flags being handed out, the Union flag, flags of the individual nations of the United Kingdom. The sun's come out, the brollies are down. And Tom, what do you think Kier Starmer will be wanting to say to the United Kingdom today? What kind of tone will he want to set? Because some people were assuming he wouldn't want crowds and flags today. He might be doing it in a rather more, dare I say, austere way.
Well, look, the contrast of those pictures of Tony Blair in 1997, that was a time the economy was going pretty well. Benign inheritance internationally, looked like, liberal democracy had won around the world. You've now got these very dark skies. I mean, the weather today is a metaphor for the inheritance. You've got an economy which is absolutely broken. There's a rotting lettuce in the Treasury fridge. Some nasty stuff in that salad drawer. From dating back to Liz Truss. And this is not that moment of a new dawn is broken. Things can only get better. It's what he said last night. I thought was really important. He said we've got to show that politics can make a difference. He said this fight for trust now defines our age, not just in this country. You'll see it in France, you see it in the United States. This battle against people who actually want to divide and polarise and bring politics down. And the kind of politics he represents, which seeks to unite and bring people together. And it's going to be a big battle, this. But the battlefield is changing. You see reform, probably second place right across the Red Wall. And what's interesting, talking to Labour people the last few days, they're already getting ready for that next battle. Far from taking their armour off, far from kicking back saying we won this election, they're saying, hold on, there's a huge political battle now.
And despite that huge number of seats, that big majority, the reality is that his share of the vote, Labour's share of the vote yesterday was 35%. So how does he carry the country with him? Does he have the communication skills to do that? Because sometimes I think people wonder whether he's as comfortable with the performance side of politics as maybe somebody like Tony Blair was.
No, he isn't. He doesn't like the performance. He likes doing it. And what he says, he always likes a football metaphor. He says, I'll do my talking on the pitch. He says, if I can show that politics can fix some things, not fix everything with a 3-word slogan, but start fixing some things now, that will do more to restore faith in politics and democracy than any fancy speech, any brilliant image. It's just showing that he can get things done. And I think that's his priority.